Welcome back to Politics Nation. New details about the man who shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Details that go straight to the heart of the question, who is George Zimmerman and why hasn't he been arrested? A former co-worker of Zimmerman tells the New York Daily News Zimmerman was fired from his job as an off-the-book security guard at illegal house parties in 2005 for being, quote, too aggressive. Quote, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. When the dude snapped, he snapped. And the co-worker adds, one time this woman was acting a little out of control. She was drunk. George lost his cool and totally overreacted. It was weird because he was such a cool guy. But he got all nuts. He picked her up and threw her. It was pure rage. This new information about Zimmerman is all the more disturbing. In 2005, he was arrested for allegedly assaulting a police officer. That same year, he and his ex-fiancée filed petitions against each other for domestic violence. And his ex-fiancée reportedly accused him of hitting her in 2002 and 2003. Some people are trying to bring up Trayvon Martin's past to try and smear him. But the big difference is he was carrying Skittles and iced tea. No one disputes that. George Zimmerman was carrying a loaded gun, and looking into his past could shed some light on why he used it. Joining me now from Miami is Kendall Coffey, former U.S. attorney and now a criminal defense lawyer, and in Los Angeles, Lisa Bloom, an attorney and author of the book Think, Straight Talk for Women to Stay Smart in a Dumbed-Down World. Great to have both of you with us. Let me start with you, Lisa. Lisa, what do you make of these reports, especially of the former co-worker saying that Zimmerman had a Jekyll and Hyde personality?
Reverend Al, I think this is very important information. All of us as human beings, as we're trying to sort this out, we want to know more about both of the people involved, and this certainly does not shed any positive light on George Zimmerman. It also makes the police look bad. Why are we learning about this from the media? There was a homicide of a 17-year-old minor. It was incumbent upon the police to do the investigation that would have led to this kind of information. It may not ultimately be admissible in court. It probably won't be, but this is the kind of thing the police should have looked into in the investigation that they should have done.
Now, Kendall, another quote from this co-worker says that Zimmerman, let me quote him, he definitely loved being in charge. He loved the power. Does that say anything to you about his personality?
I think it really helps us understand what happened that night. That you had somebody who was a wannabe police officer for the wrong reasons. He wanted the power, the ability to use a gun. And when you put the other pieces together, I think we're starting to really understand George Zimmerman. I agree with Lisa that I think this kind of evidence is very unlikely to be allowed inside a trial, if there's a trial someday. But here's one of the things it does, and I think it could bear upon how the special prosecutor decides this case. The first thing she has to be convinced of is to a moral certainty that this guy unlawfully killed Trayvon Martin. And this kind of information, even if it isn't the kind of evidence that might come in front of a jury someday, helps drive the sense of righteousness, that a case can be a righteous prosecution even if it's not an easy case for conviction.
But Lisa, given the background that we're getting of Mr. Zimmerman, given the kinds of things we're learning, why do you think that somebody in law enforcement, somewhere it seems in Sanford Police, are digging in to fight for this guy? I mean, this city now is becoming known all over the world in not so great a light. Is this kind of guy worth it without just taking probable cause, arresting him, and let the evidence go to trial and see for themselves what we're dealing with here? Why are they digging in on this?
Well, I have no idea why they're digging in, and it certainly looks bad for them with each passing day. I mean, it appears as though they initially just completely believed George Zimmerman's story. You know, in every shooting, there's somebody left holding the gun, and there's somebody who's deceased. And the person left holding the gun is never going to say, you know what, I committed cold-blooded murder, or I acted with reckless indifference to human life. They're always going to have a story, and self-defense is going to be their strongest story. It's very common for somebody to assert that. But the police have a duty to do an investigation. And now with the entire world watching, the Sanford Police Department has an obligation to follow up on this and to do the investigation that they should have done. It's not too late for them to do that. It's not too late for them to make the arrest that they need to make. And I agree with you, Reverend Al. The world is watching.
Now, Kendall, you used to be the U.S. Attorney down there. I mean, how do you explain the way the police are acting here? Is there a connection here? Is there something you suspect we don't know yet? I mean, why are they taking what appears to be such an irrational stand?
Well, we're not going to know that right now, and that's why the Justice Department, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and others are investigating, I believe, not only George Zimmerman, but also investigating the investigation. Because every single day, evidence comes out that makes you just drop your jaw and say, why wasn't this looked at before? Why does Reverend Al Sharpton come up with interviews a couple nights ago, and last night an analysis of the video that seemed to be much more penetrating and relevant than what the Sanford Police Department was doing in the aftermath of February 26th. So this investigation is going to get a very close look now, and it's very hard for us to speculate on the answers. We know one thing. The lead investigator thought there was probable cause for an arrest. We know that somehow he got overruled, and that somehow has to be explained and substantiated.
Now, Lisa, some of the things neighbors have said about Zimmerman is, quote, I think he took his job too seriously, he's overzealous, fixated on crime, and focused on young black males. These are his neighbors saying this. This adds to the whole picture given by the ex-employee that worked with him.
Yeah, it's a very disturbing story, and there are a lot of facts back and forth in this case, but one thing we know for sure, the 911 operator told George Zimmerman not to follow Trayvon Martin, and George Zimmerman decided to do that anyway. Why did he decide to do that? Was it because of the hoodie? Was it because of the color of Trayvon Martin's skin? Was it because he was a controlling person who wanted to take control of the situation? Was it a combination of these three factors? But you're right, we're learning more and more about him every day, and it's just astounding to me that the media is doing this and not local law enforcement. That's who should have been doing this from the beginning.
In fact, Kendall, when I go through the log of some of the 911 calls Zimmerman made since 2005, in March 2005, he called 911 about pothole blocking road. 2006, November, vehicle driving real slow, blasting music. November 2010, trash in the roadway. September 2011, open garage door. January of this year, children playing in the street. It would seem to me he would be an annoying figure to police, calling on such petty things like this, yet they treated him like he was something to be treated special. It just doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. He's exactly what responsible police officers don't want. They don't want a citizen walking around with a gun who doesn't have the training and the professionalism to use that kind of thing. They don't want a self-appointed vigilante becoming a self-appointed executioner.
Lisa, let me end with you. Give me your final thoughts. We're saying, I'm saying, and others have been saying by the tens of thousands, he should be arrested. Your final thoughts.
Well, I agree, but let's not just point the finger at the Sanford PD or at George Zimmerman. Let's point it at ourselves for allowing stand your ground laws that tie the hands of police and law enforcement. They may very well want to make an arrest, especially the prosecutor, but they have to live with the law that was enacted in the state of Florida and in more than 20 other states nationwide. I think that's really the root of the problem here.
No, I agree, and I also am going to challenge some of them that say that law doesn't apply here. Then they ought to come out with us and say, then fine. If it doesn't apply, then tell us that you agree he should have been arrested. They won't go that far. Kendall Coffey and Lisa Bloom, thanks for coming on the show tonight. Have a great weekend.
Hey, thanks
Reverend Al.